Good evening, folks. I'd like to call the Planning Board meeting of May 2nd, 2024 to order. Persons who wish to do so are invited to attend this meeting or view the meeting at the link on the website. For instructions and guidance how to join the meeting remotely, please note that the in-person meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technical problems interrupt the remote connection. The meeting is called to order. I'd like to introduce Planning Board members and staff. To my far left, David Rosen, Greg Catamatori, our Planning Director. I'm Rick Noonan, the Chair. Jane Ramson, Vice Chair. Doug Cook, Beverly Bookin, Sean Henry, and our senior member, Hank McCarl. We do have a couple of things that we're going to take out of order this evening to sort of expedite our agenda. Under other business, we're going to start with the request for release of covenant at 50 Atlantic Ave, Common Driveway, which said it was.
We'll try this one. They did submit an as-built plan, which was reviewed by the fire department and staff. There are some outstanding issues that they hope to resolve between now and the next meeting. So they're requesting continuance to the May 16th meeting.
Next, under other business this evening is request for release of covenant at Beacon Farm Lane. Let's see if we can find our friend Adria. Okay. Have representation joining us remotely. The floor is yours, Attorney Pratt.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Say again.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, my name is Adria Pratt, an attorney with offices at 85 Eastern Ave in Gloucester. I represent Ashburn Development Corporation, whose principal is William Sanborn of 35 Briarwood Street here in Gloucester. I also have John Judd, who is part of this Zoom meeting in case you have any technical specific questions for him. But we are back before you this evening regarding our request for the release of the final lot in the Deacon Farm Lane subdivision. This is lot 4, which is located off of Washington Street. Since
Adria,
we last, yes.
We're not seeing your video.
Oh, 1 second. Do you see me now?
Yeah.
Yeah?
No.
No. See. So it's showing that my video is on, but you're not seeing me.
On our end, it's showing the video is off.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Let's try this again. Oh, can you see me now? Yes?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Apologies for that. So again, we are here tonight asking for the release of the final lot in the Deacon Farm Lane subdivision, which is lot 4 of that 10-lot subdivision. Since we last met about this project, the work within the subdivision has been completed, and 9 out of the 10 lots have been sold, including the 2 affordable units within that subdivision. This is shown on the final as-built plan, as well as the final Form K. Which
Adria, your video and audio is really breaking up. Want to bring. John, if you can hear us, we've brought you in as a panelist, and if you want to pick up the presentation, Audrey, there he is.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'll be the backup quarterback today. And so I can answer any questions that might have come up. Obviously, I'm intimately familiar with the project. It looks like Adria is on the road, and I think everything in our opinion has been constructed. Greg, I know you may have some thoughts, and you've done some inspections, but we've done a numerous amount of inspections over the course of the last couple of years, and we can answer any questions you might have.
Greg, do you have a site plan you can put up?
If I could speak. Oh, we got it working again. I can. Cutting out. Try that one. So at the time of the last submission for a covenant release, we received as-built plans, which essentially have not changed. There was one lot that was remaining that was held in the covenant. The remaining items were really landscaping. Last fall, the street trees went in. They are still, they're doing pretty well right now. So at this point, if all of the inspections have been completed, it's been reviewed by Public Works and Engineering. It gets to the point where if they are asking for the release of the last lot, they then provided an estimate of construction and are supplying a bond in a value of 20% of all the improvements that have been made. That's held for an 18-month period, just essentially as kind of a warranty to see how the road stands up over the next 18 months. So at this point, there's really nothing remaining from the actual subdivision improvements to be installed. And again, we would have that retainage for an 18-month period. What's up? Try this one. Greg, what's it's cutting out. Hold on a second. I'll get to that. I understand your question.
We've lost all audio on this side.
Yep, I can't hear anything.
Nobody's saying anything right now.
That makes sense.
Adria, I'm assuming you don't have all the documentation in front of you. They were just asking for what the value of the bond was.
The value of the bond, I do. Yeah, it's $88,662.
Any other questions from board members to the applicant on the release of covenant? Hearing none.
I move that we approve the request for the release of covenant for Deacon Farm Lane.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous vote. We had a motion by Beverly? Motion by Jane. And then seconded by Beverly. That's just for our scribes' purposes. Thanks very much, guys. John and Adria.
Thank you
all.
very much. John, thank you for stepping in. Apologies for my connectivity issues. I appreciate it. Have a
you
great
bet.
night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
So we will move back to the normal agenda. So under the first item on the agenda this evening is a major project review. In accordance with GZO 5.7.4, the Gloucester Planning Board will review the proposed major project submitted by 20 Main LLC for a 24-resident unit mixed-use project to be located at 20 Main Street, Assessor's Map 7, Lot 94, presented by Attorney Deb Ellison. And the floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Deborah Ellison, Ellison Law Office, 63 Middle Street, Gloucester. I don't believe I've been let in as a panelist yet. Very good. If I may share my screen, Mr. Chairman. There we go. The applicant and the owner of this project is 20 Main LLC, and Kathy Gattineri is here tonight on behalf of the LLC. The architect is Daniel DeLulo, and he is at the meeting on the Zoom. The surveyor is Hayes Engineering, Inc., and the property, as I said, is located at 20 Main Street. This is a picture of the building that is currently existing on the property. The applicant has several requests before the City Council: a special permit under GZO 1.8.3, 2.3.18 to authorize the conversion to a new multifamily building with 7 or more units, a special permit for a major project with 11 or more dwelling units, a height exception to permit building heights in excess of 35 feet. It will be 37 feet 4 inches above the average existing grade, and a special permit to permit a lesser minimum lot area and open space per dwelling. The applicant intends to convert the property to a mixed commercial and residential space, bringing the retail use back to the storefront. These are the floor plans for the project. The project will contain 24 dwelling units, one 1,100 square foot retail area in the front on the ground floor, and it will have a lobby for residential units, which will include a place for mailroom, trash storage inside the building, as well as elevator access. The units are all one-bedroom units ranging in size from 896 square feet to 1,190 square feet. There'll be 1 bedroom, an office, 2 bathrooms, and a combined kitchen, living, and dining room. The project will have 26 parking spaces. The requirement is to have 24 units, to have 24 parking spaces. In the applicant's experience, buildings of this type, many unit owners do not have cars. According to the 2017 Housing Production Plan, citywide, Gloucester is a place that overall requires a car. It has a walk score of 41 out of 100. The downtown area, however, has a walk score of 94 out of 100. The walk score analyzes how close amenities are and how pedestrian friendly the area is. A walk score between 90 and 100 is considered a walker's paradise, meaning that daily errands do not require a car. A walk score between 25 and 49 is car dependent, and most errands do require a car. We anticipate that many of the occupants will not need or have a car, even though the required parking is provided. This is a good location for additional housing. It will provide desperately needed housing units. The availability of local shopping, dining, and other amenities will be great for the residents of the building. The 24 additional resident units in the downtown area will augment the customer base of nearby merchants. We included in the application 28 letters of support from surrounding business owners and other businesses outside of downtown, as well as 27 letters of general support. The project will comply with the inclusionary housing requirement under the zoning ordinance. And the project has received approval of the zoning board as well as the Historic District Commission. With a project of this type, obviously requiring a lot of different permits, there have been some changes since it was first submitted. And this is a list of the changes to the project. The top floor, residential floor, has been removed, and that reduced the height from 45 feet to 37 feet approximately. The unit count has also been reduced from 28 to 24. The parking space is reduced from 28 to 26. And the exterior finish has been changed from an EIFS system to brick veneer. The window style and locations have also changed, and the balconies have been relocated from the front of the building to the side of the building. The roof equipment has been moved toward the street, and screening has been added. A retaining wall has been eliminated, and a landscape area has been added. This is the first rendering that was presented to the ZBA. The balconies, as you can see, are in the front of the building, and it has double windows for the most part. After meeting with the Historic District Commission, this was a different rendering that was provided to them. The top floor was changed to clapboard to give it more of a mansard look. The windows were changed to single windows, and the balconies were recessed. This is the building as presently presented and as was approved by the Historic District Commission. The one story has been removed. The balconies have been moved to the side of the building, and the front facade is flat without balconies, and the roof, as you can see, is screened. The project, I would suggest, is in harmony with the intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance, and it's appropriate for this neighborhood. It's consistent with the mixed uses and commercial of commercial and residential structures. It will vastly improve this underutilized site. It will add visual appeal, and it's more compatible development for this neighborhood. It also will add to the short supply of housing, and its height is needed to allow the ground level parking, which of course is important in this downtown area, and will also allow the building to blend into the surrounding architecture. It also satisfies the 7 factors under 1.8.3, and I'll briefly go through those for you. With regard to social, economic, and community needs, they are served by the project. The current building, as you saw, is a 1-story former bank building with a drive-through. It's most recently been offices. It's not in keeping with the other buildings in this historic district. The project is more consistent with the highest and best use of the property and more in keeping with other mixed uses along the street. The applicant's project will bring back the retail use, and the site is desirable for the addition of much-needed residential uses. It will also augment the customer base of the nearby merchants without impacting public parking on Main Street, and it has the support of its business neighbors and the business community at large. It will also have on-site affordable units. With regard to traffic flow and safety, there is 1 off-street parking space required for each unit in the CB district, and those will be provided. There will actually be 26 spaces. Downtown's pedestrian friendly and walkable. Most residents who will visit the downtown businesses will be walking. Therefore, they'll leave the public parking spaces open to residents who live in more car-dependent areas of the city. Access to the site in the neighborhood is via a private way, which is called Chisholm Court. Chisholm Court will be expanded to a width of 20 feet to allow access not only by the vehicles going into this site, but also for the vehicles on the site next door and fire apparatus. They're also proposing to remove a curb cut in this vicinity and to relocate some parking spaces so that no parking spaces will be lost, but the entrance and exit to the property will be better. With regard to utilities and other public services, utilities will be updated as necessary and will be adequate to meet the needs of the project. It is served by public water and sewer, and all necessary utilities are readily available in Main Street. Project's appropriate for this neighborhood because of the mixed residential and commercial use. The height at 37 feet 4 inches is consistent with other buildings in downtown Gloucester. It's well within the norm for downtown, and it's lower than many of the buildings in the near vicinity. This is the building right next door, the Blackburn Tavern. Its roof peak without the cupola is 51 feet, and its facade is 45 feet. Across the street, 1-7 Main Street is 57 feet high. A little ways down the street, 44 Main Street has a height of 46 feet at its roof peak with a height of 34 at the facade. This is another building with a similar height at 61 Main Street, and 92 Main Street has a height of 58 feet at the Main Street facade. Recently, 71 Middle Street, which is the new YMCA residential building, received a height exception of 40 feet, and 206 Main Street, which is the Harbor Light building, received a height exception of 49 feet. So unlike many buildings along Main Street, this property is not constructed lot line to lot line. Non-residential uses have a zero setback under the zoning ordinances, and many of the uses on Main Street are lot line to lot line. There were variances granted by the ZBA, and those are wholly consistent with the majority of the existing buildings in downtown. Proposed building will have more space between its neighbors because of the right-of-way at Chisholm Court, as well as the parking lot, which is next door. The qualities of the environment will not be impacted. Site has more than the required lot area. The 10,000 square feet is required. This lot has 14,160 square feet. It's not within a protected resource area, and it's currently developed with a single-family residential building that is almost, and the lot is almost entirely paved. Fiscal impact will be improved, and the occupation of this site for mixed use will increase its value, will add residential tax revenue to the city, create a greater consumer base, and bring the site closer to its highest and best use. With regard to vulnerability for flooding, the site is not located within a FEMA flood zone. Looking at the major project criteria, I would suggest that this project meets all of the criteria. Major projects should be accessed from arterial and collector streets. There is direct access to this project from Main Street via Chisholm Court as it is widened and only used by the site and Blackburn Tavern property. After consultation with the planning board planning department, we determined that the project does meet this requirement and the access to the site is more than adequate to serve this use. The property is connected to municipal sewage, so Part B does not apply. The site plan requirements are met. We have shown all of the access points, drainage, and utilities that will be serving the property. No access from minor streets. Parking is screened. It is screened on Main Street by the retail building as well as the lobby, and then along the right side, it will be screened by the vegetation. Lighting in the parking area is down lighting from the building, and egress from the project does not require people to back out onto the public way. They'll move into the parking lot, turn around, and come back out. It's no major topographical changes. It's a fairly flat site, and landscape plan will be incorporated to keep vegetation along the right-hand side of the building, as well as in the back left corner. It also will meet all the zoning ordinance and building code requirements. And with regard to multifamily residential use in a non-residential district, the CB district, it allows residential developments, but it's not per se a residential district. The project does meet the criteria for this section. Public good will be served by adding more housing. Local businesses will be positively impacted, and the CB district will not be negatively impacted because it is typical to have residential uses above the commercial uses on the ground floor. More housing units will support the CB uses, and they will not be noxious. The CB uses will not be noxious to multifamily because they tend to be retail goods and services, establishments and restaurants, all of the things that a resident is looking for. With regard to the reduction in lot area, the project will be seeking a reduction for lot area per dwelling as well as open space per dwelling. The requested reduction should be allowed because such lesser area and open space is consistent with the rest of the neighborhood and the structural density in this neighborhood. The vast majority of buildings on Main Street, as I said, sit at or near the lot lines and have little or no open space. Buildings that have recently been approved for residential projects are similarly situated, and they're being constructed close to the lot lines. Downtown multifamily living does not generally afford significant outdoor space on the site. The surrounding neighborhood acts as the backyard to the building, providing places for entertainment, physical activity, and socializing. This project is an easy walk to the harbor, Stacy Boulevard, Pavilion Beach, and slightly longer walk to Stage Fort Park. With regard to height, as I said, the building will be 37 feet 4 inches. That allows it to have the ground level parking, and it makes the building consistent with other buildings in the vicinity. It's important to remember the applicant has a right to build a building up to 30 feet. So the consideration is whether the differential of approximately 7 feet makes this building substantially detrimental to the neighborhood as a whole. And I suggest that it does not. The original proposal called for a 4th story. After many discussions with the Historic District Commission and the abutters at 35 Middle Street, the 4th story was removed and the height went from 45 feet down to approximately 37 feet. The project is designed to minimize new obstructions of views by leaving open corridors on both sides of the building. In the densely constructed downtown, every building overshadows every other building to some extent during the year. Again, a 30-foot building is allowed as of right, and so the comparison is not between the single-story building that exists there now, but it's between the proposed building and a building that would be at 30 feet. In general, the longest shadows are cast during December and January, when people tend to be indoors. And due to the elevation of the residential properties on Middle Street and the orientation of the site, there's very little overshadowing of those properties at any time of the year. For all of the reasons, I would ask that you give a favorable approval of this project to the City Council, and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Attorney Ellison. Greg, do you have any commentary?
This works. Let's see if it stays. Looks like it might stay. So at the same time that this was referred from the clerk's office to the planning board, it was also referred to city departments for review and report. That just happened this past week. So I anticipate by the time at least of the next meeting, we'll have preliminary comments from the fire department, the engineering department, public works, and the health department. There's probably limited conservation jurisdiction. There is no wetland or floodplain in the area, but it's also forwarded to the conservation agents as well for comment. So we're kind of at the very beginning of this. So not much to say at this point, just from the technical review perspective. I know that there'll probably, there's been in the presentation, utility connection is something that we've seen with a number of projects with redevelopment of the downtown that sometimes need some validation and exploration as uses change. This is certainly going from a fairly low intensity use to a little bit more high intensity use with residential on water and sewer infrastructure, for instance. So we'll be able to provide that comment from those departments probably by the next meeting.
Any initial questions? The applicant's attorney at this point? David? Nope. Nope.
No. Try it now. Does that work?
All right, we'll see if this works. The applicant. Let's try this. In the application, it three
Everyone at home, some of our mics aren't working, so bear with us while we fix it or work around it.
Oh, that's good.
Allison, if you don't mind surrendering your microphone for a minute.
Not at all.
Okay, is this working? The application said 3 or 4 affordable units. Which is it?
Sorry for everyone at home, still having technical difficulties.
Test, test. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
So the number of units is tied to the level of affordability. So at 4 units, there is a level of affordability of, I believe, 60%. And at 3 units, they would be at, no, vice versa. Yeah, 80% for 4 units and 60% for AMI for 3 units. So the applicant will determine at the time what the economics are, whether they want to do a 60% and do less units, or if they want to do more units at the 80% AMI.
Okay. And is the intention to be rental units, or are these going to be condos?
The intention, I believe, in the beginning is certainly to be, I believe, is to be apartment units. But again, the zoning doesn't put a restriction on which it is. And so it could certainly be condos if they decided to do that.
All right. And then a question about the type of brick. Is it going to be a brick that's like the Blackburn building, or that is a kind of red brick, or a brown brick like the building across the street?
That would be a question for the architect. I believe it's more of a reddish brick, but it's a brick veneer, but it is a real brick, just not a full-size brick. So I know the architect is on, and he may be able to tell you which it is.
Okay, that'd be helpful.
Mhm. Mr. DeLulo, if you could raise your hand, it might be easier for the planning director to find you.
Can you find me now?
You're the man with
Yeah.
one first name.
Yeah, Dan DeLulo.
Or is yours?
Dan, the question was the color of the brick, whether it is more closely to the Blackburn or versus the brick across the street.
It's closer to the Blackburn. The brick that was approved by the Historic District Commission, I believe, is called schoolhouse brick, which is a traditional red brick that you'd see on most of the buildings up and down Main Street. Very traditional red brick.
Okay. And one last question, and perhaps for the architect and for the applicant, is I'm concerned about the kind of utilitarian look of the facade of the building on Main Street in particular. And I wonder whether any consideration has been given to some more detailing of the facade, similar to other new projects that have gone on downtown, like the new building at the old Y site, or the Cameron's building. It's that's the major concern that I have about the project.
Okay, and I think I do want to emphasize that the Historic District Commission did approve it. I believe the rendering probably does not show the detailing as much as the plans do. And so perhaps we can either look at those now or the architect can describe to you generally what the facade is at the street level. There is granite involved and certain pilasters that have granite, but he can describe it better than I can. Dan, do you want?
Yeah, sure. At the street level, at the commercial facade, it's pretty much as indicated in the historic guidelines booklet from the Historic Commission. And we worked with them to develop a commercial facade that is granite, granite base, granite columns, and a wood window that is higher than normal with transom windows, much like you'd see up and down the street. And that granite veneer carries up the two sides of the building. On the left-hand side as you face the building, it goes all the way back to the beginning of the garage, and on the right-hand side, it goes back the same distance, even though it's not beside the garage. So I think what you'd see from the street is pretty much what you see in some of the more typical buildings on Main Street is granite, painted wood, or in some cases they've been replaced with aluminum storefront type material that look more like traditional windows, and traditional type lighting being there's no signage selected yet. We don't know what the tenant is, but you know, a very traditional storefront lighting over that sign, which shines directly out onto the sign. So pretty much traditional looking. The window placement on the front of the building and the facade of the building were changed a number of times to work with the Historic District Commission. The window pattern, the window size, the window locations were all coordinated with the commission to pretty much repetitive of what goes on up and down Main Street. And it's not our intent, nor is it the Historic District Commission's intent to make the building look like an 1800s building or an 1850s building. The intent is that it have some of the character of what's going on Main Street while bringing in some modern touches. But I think you'll see if you step back and take a look at it and you walked up and down Main Street, in the long run, you wouldn't see any significant difference. We've got a coping at the top of the storefront, and we have a coping, significant size coping at the top of the building, which wraps around, and we've got granite window heads over all of the windows, all pretty much traditional with what's going on up and down Main Street.
And Mr. Rosen, I did pull up the plan. I don't know if that.
Any follow-up, David?
No, thank you for that explanation. I would still maintain that it's a fairly, in my opinion, plain vanilla facade, and that something could be done without making it, you know, a replica of a historic building. But I feel like there hasn't been an effort to kind of enhance Main Street. I think that the appearance of the building is basically the bare minimum for a building that's going to be a prominent addition to Main Street over time. So, thank you.
Questions or comments while we're on this? Sean?
See if mine works. So did you say each of the units is going to be a single bedroom with 2 baths?
Yes, single bedroom, 2 baths. So it has 1 bedroom and an office.
Was there any consideration given to doing more of a mix of studios to 2 bedrooms? So there's more of a variety of housing included in the project?
That was considered, and when the 4th floor of the residential was removed, then it was reduced down to the 1 bedrooms, and that was really what worked with that configuration.
Again, we're at the very beginning of this process, so there's going to be a lot more to digest as we move through the major project review. But if there's any other questions at this point, if not, we can move along to our agenda. Thank you, Attorney Ellison. And
I guess the only other thing that I heard from the P&D committee is that they might conduct a site visit. So I don't know if there's any interest in doing that. I'm sure, I know at least one planning board member knows the site pretty well. But in the event that you would like to either do that jointly with P&D, if they schedule one in the next couple of weeks. I don't know if Attorney Ellison, if you've been contacted yet for anything like that.
I have not, no. So I don't know what the schedule at P&D is at all.
so we'll leave it. Uh-oh, don't touch anything. Leave it for our next meeting of May 16th. Looking for feedback from departments.
Yes.
Okay. And we don't need to continue that.
We take a motion to continue that.
Okay, I'll look for a motion to the May 16th meeting.
Can I just add one comment before we
Sure.
do that? That I know that a lot of the public is here concerned about 20 Main Street. And I want you to know that all of your submissions are in our files, and we've read them, and we understand them. But this will be an ongoing process, and we'll continue to consider your input. So with that, I move that we continue the review of the proposed major project submitted by 20 Main LLC for a 24 residential unit mixed-use project to our next meeting of May 16.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion by Jane Remsen. We have second by Hank McCarl. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Unanimous vote. We'll see you May 16th. Thank you, Attorney Ellison. Okay, see if we can change gears here. So we're going back to other business. Why don't we take a stab at minutes? We have two. Let's start with the oldest one first, October 15th of 2020. Jeez. Yes. No. So again, this is,
I'm not sure the public can see the minutes unless, yes,
Yeah.
Greg should share the minutes. Yes.
okay. So page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Any additions, corrections, omissions, subtractions?
Nope, no comments. I move that we approve the minutes of October 15, 2020.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion by Jane Ramsden, seconded by Hank McCarl. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Next is jump right into the future. So next we have minutes from April 18th, 2024. Seems like yesterday. So, right, page 1, page 2, and that's it, short meeting. Any additions or corrections?
I was absent, so I have to abstain.
Doug, it's up to you.
I'll second.
Make the motion.
Oh, you want me to make the motion?
Yeah.
Fine. To accept the minutes. Sorry.
I second that.
We have a motion by Hank McCarl, seconded by Sean Henry. All in favor?
For the April 18, 2024 minutes.
Right.
Everybody's mic happy at the moment. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No. Motion carries. Thank you.
Also want to thank our scribe for doing such a good job.
Yes,
Second.
that was an unofficial motion. So let's get back to an agenda. That's today. So next under other business this evening is a comprehensive plan, draft revision, core themes and goals survey is open. You can see the comp plan website. We have an open house coming up on Saturday, May 4th here at the auditorium from 10 a.m. to noon. So want to give a little pitch?
Yeah, so the next two agenda items were really updates on what's kind of on the calendar for planning efforts, planning board activity over the next couple of months. So I will share my screen just so that if folks are able to view this at a later time, they will see what's going on. Let me just try to see if I can get that. Everybody can see that okay? So just first and foremost, I want to make sure that people are accessing information because there is a lot of it on the city website. This is a screen capture of the city website. If anybody is looking for information about the comprehensive plan, we now have a fixed banner at the top of the city website that then takes you to the comprehensive plan website with all the information to date, as well as its own calendar of events as things have been progressing. For anything associated with either the comprehensive plan, planning board activities, or the 40A, 3A, MBTA communities, you can go to the planning board website by hovering over the government tab and then scrolling down to planning board. And there are links to both the comprehensive plan website as well as the information site for MBTA communities. And if all else fails, you can always just go into the search box and search any one of these terms. Just type in either 40A, 3A, MBTA, planning board, comprehensive plan, and you'll get links to the information pages on the website. So I just want to make sure that people can always contact our office, but there's a lot of information available on the city website. As the chairman had pointed out on the comprehensive plan front, for the past month or so, there's been a survey available through the comprehensive plan website with the draft vision, cores, and themes and goals that were developed from the working session that was held on March 9th. We've had a number of folks that have responded online, but there's also the availability this weekend. Not sure how good the weather looks like on Saturday, so stroll on over to City Hall. And from 10 to 12, there'll be an opportunity for you to see those materials and comment on them as well. Moving forward, just wanted to provide an update on the MBTA communities. I know that there's a lot of interest in that. We haven't had a meeting or discussion on it since the meeting that was held on March 20, was it 5th or 6th? Trying to remember now. I think it was the 25th. That was held in City Hall. There'll be a number of meetings coming up over the next 4 to 6 weeks, so I want to make sure that people are aware of the timeline. This is the timeline that was provided in the action plan that was developed in December of 22. And we are kind of right in the middle of it at this point and on target. We've been working with our consultants from RKG who have taken the feedback that was provided at the meeting that was held in City Hall about a month ago and are starting to develop what a compliance scenario might look like for the city. And that will first be presented to the Planning Board and Planning and Development Committee. I'm sorry, I jumped ahead of myself. So again, this was the timeline that we provided of meetings and activities at the beginning of the year for the Planning Board over the year. And again, we are kind of on target. We're in the March to May timeframe. We had the visioning session on the 9th. We have the open house this Saturday. And we are in the middle of scenario development to see what that looks like for Gloucester to comply with MBTA communities. So coming up, meetings-wise, on May 16th, we will be having a kind of report out on the month-long and the feedback that we've received on the draft vision, and that will be presented at a planning board meeting on May 16th. So that's our next meeting. On May 21st, again, coming out of that first session on MBTA communities, we know that there's still a lot of questions. So we will be holding a information session here on the 21st from 6 to 8 p.m. It will start with a brief presentation with some frequently asked questions. There are documents on the information page with answers to frequently asked questions. But I think it's something that we'll just have to continue to do. It's not a simple issue, and there are certainly a lot of questions still remaining around it. And there's a lot of communities that are still grappling with it that have to comply by the end of this year, and then more in the following year, by the following December. So that will be an opportunity for folks to come to City Hall. We will have as many chairs as that we have to provide. There'll be no tables, no round table, and people will also be able to watch online hybrid. Hopefully we'll have the microphone system working a lot better for that venue. Then on June 6th at the Planning Board, that's when we're intending to invite the Planning and Development Standing Committee to join the Planning Board like we did with the first information session. And that's where Eric Halverson will be reporting out on what we heard from that first meeting. And also, not every idea that somebody presents is something that potentially would comply, and start to present what actual scenarios might look like. And then very shortly after the input from the Planning Board and P&D, we'll have the second public forum on those scenarios, presenting those again in the Kairos Auditorium at 6 p.m. on June 12th. And then we will have a little bit of a break from work on 3A and move back into kicking off the third phase of the comp plan on June 20th at a regular planning board meeting. The next phase after kind of galvanizing the vision statement for the document is looking at the objectives and starting to think about strategies. So this is where I'm sure folks will probably really want to share their ideas. There's an objective, and it's how do we get there? And those will come in a variety of different ways. How the city should spend its time, how its volunteer board should move towards the goals that are identified in the plan. There was an op-ed in the paper today with some suggestions, and those are the types of things that would be as a part of strategy development. So there's a lot happening over the month of May and June. A little bit more intense on the MBTA community side of things. That information session, again, I think, we're going to do our best to answer folks' questions, but I think once they start to see what scenarios actually look like, it'll probably make a lot more sense, because reading the instructions is something versus building it are two different things, and sometimes you really don't know how it's going to look until you're done building it. So that's what I have for an update.
Would you like us, as many of us as we can, to come to the Saturday session?
Yes, this Saturday, yes, definitely.
From 10 to 12?
Yes, from 10 to 12.
We have name tags?
Yes, we can have name tags. We will have name tags.
Great.
What time is the session on the 20th?
The 20th is just a regular planning board meeting. So we have really been struggling with finding meeting dates for anything that's not a regular board, committee, and commission meeting night. There's a lot of things going on. We don't have a lot of venues like this to hold hybrid meetings, so they're really at a premium right now. There are things like the Affordable Housing Trust just had a closing on their notice of funding availability. So they are ramping up and having additional meetings to review applications. So to try to fit things in, we're doing our best to try to make sure that we provide enough time for these topics. But in some instances, we have to use our planning board time as well, and we're going to have to manage that very carefully. If applications are going to be competing with planning initiatives, and to a certain extent, we're going to have to give the priority to those planning initiatives and just try to manage those other agenda items as we can.
Thanks for the update, Greg, and the timeline. Hope people had an opportunity to snap a photo or two. This information is going to be, as Greg pointed out, on the website in several different fashions. I don't believe there are any other matters not reasonably anticipated prior to the meeting, and we're at the point of adjournment.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to adjourn the meeting.
We have a motion by Hank McCarl. And we have a second by Doug Cook. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? You don't want to stay later? Thank you, guys.